never been punched in the face?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Line up.
You gotta learn how to punch, but you also gotta learn how to control it at the same time. So that's part of that process.
Well, and you learn
and you have consequences. Then you see what happens when you punch somebody in the fucking face.
Yeah.
Now it's like, there's some shit I see online.
Yeah.
Like, nobody punches anybody in the face anymore. Mike Tyson's right.
And there's just a bunch of fucking tofu eating fucking man bun wearing dorks and no pussy at all. Yeah.
Hold down, recorded. Is he down? Is he a big one? Is he down? Real love is trying to get the damn shot.
Bullshit, man. Look at the thing.
4 more shorts. Yeah. That sack fucking hanging out. Don't fucking doubt the fucking 6 millimeter. Shoot him, shoot him. All right, hold on.
Let's go.
The fucking Amish would have shot that motherfucker.
Got a face only mother can love. That's great.
You're over here fucking worried about the record button, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy has like 12 different like non-over-the-counter medications inside of him right now, and he's worried about what I'm doing with the record. I wouldn't even trust you to drive right now.
Hey, but who fucked it up yesterday? Not me.
Did have it again.
I do have a question before we get going in here, Marlon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jake said that you found Shoot Town podcast, Ben watched, listened to a whole bunch of them on vacation or something.
Yes.
Like, I was wondering about, like, mentally if you're okay. Because I was like, anybody that says that that's quality entertainment.
Well,
it works for some people.
Well, you have to understand at this particular vacation, we went down to Gulf Shores area in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And day 2, we went to a restaurant, and my wife, we're at a salad bar. She slips and falls and messes her knee up. We go to the emergency room and everything else. This is day 2 of the vacation.
Oh.
So she's now on crutches, and we have to go like 4 flights of stairs to go to the pool because the pool's like an upper thing, and you got like a half-mile walk to the beach. So that's out. So now we're like, I'm at the pool with, my hobbling wife. I bring her out there, crippled. There is a lazy river, so we're able to sit in that for a while. But for the most part, it's, it's hanging out by the pool for like the entire day. So after a while, I'm like, well, I'm going to listen to this stuff. Hey, I'll start listening to these podcasts. And I put it on there, and I literally was able to spend like 8 or 9 hours just hanging out there getting sunburned.
Nice.
And listening to podcasts and occasionally getting interrupted to go get her a drink.
You got to keep the pain down.
Well, the lazy river was fun until you find out that, as we disciplined, I guess is the correct way to say it. But anyway, we beat our children when they needed to be beaten.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I found out was like the newer generation with young kids, they just let them go wild. They in the lazy river, you got little tiny kids jumping around and dive bombing you and
knocking
everything
you off the
else.
tube because I don't know it takes 12 minutes to get back on the tube.
Yes. Yeah.
I like how you said that.
So when we're in the lazy river, I had an active part of like defending my wife the whole time, running in front of her, behind her, keeping the kids away because she's got a bandaged knee and a leg sitting up there, and her pain tolerance level is very, very low. So for her.
Were you a podcast guy before that, or no?
A little bit here and there, mainly when I mow the lawn. I would listen to podcasts when I mow the lawn.
Yes, I'm a podcast junkie.
So before you found Shoot Town as the best podcast on the planet, what were you listening to before?
Quite a wide variety of things. A lot of like random knowledge. So one of the podcasts I like to listen to is 99% Invisible. It's out of California, Roman Mars. It started out as an architectural thing, but it goes through history. It's an interesting podcast because now it's very left leading when they get into political things. So that part of it you got to take with a grain of salt. But it's like takes these weird little things like how did the aluminum chair that's used in all naval ships get developed, and why was it developed the way it was developed?
Oh, that's cool.
And so they do a lot of these weird, like squirrels in Central Park. Like squirrels didn't exist in Central Park and they were put there. You know, and like why were they put there and when were they put there and those kind of things. So 99% Invisible is a podcast that just talks about like random things and how they came about, the things that nobody knows.
What you said, 99
PI, 99% Invisible.
I remember that. If there's another one, if you want to listen about military history, like weird, it's called The Fat Electrician on YouTube. The Fat, but he has some like, oh my God, he has some of the best in-depth war histories. Yeah, and like just history of America. Yeah. Look up Airborne Beavers.
All right.
Airborne Beavers, Fat Electrician. It's about Idaho and how they tried to move the beavers out farther out. It's very interesting.
Sounded like a porno at first.
Yeah, he's very
careful how you Google it.
Yep. Don't let the AI take over.
Yeah.
There's going to be 2 strings. The normal one
could be
and the centipede one.
The
centipede one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, let's not bring that up.
Everybody should see the human centipede. We gotta keep bringing that up.
Don't do it.
There was a South Park episode. As soon as you guys talked about that, literally there was a South Park episode that they made a reference to that.
Really?
Oh, South Park's the greatest.
Yeah, I don't remember which one of the characters ended up as part of the centipede in the middle.
Well, I tell you what, I've only ever asked Ryan about one movie. Well, I've only taken his advice to watch one movie. That was the first and last. I don't take his advice any fucking more. Now, of course, I give him lots of good advice on movies, and you know this. Yeah. He just gave me one shitty one.
So he says.
Yeah.
Michael here in the office. Michael's what, 30, 35?
Maybe 30.
Yeah, 30, 35, and we got a running Excel workbook of recommended movies.
Okay.
For him that are must-sees.
Okay.
That one's not on the list.
Yeah, so it goes. So the movie list came about because there's a huge, obviously, generational gap between us and him.
Yeah.
Right. And so I make fun of him, and this is Luke the same way. So I blame a lot of it. This is my own thinking. So we're getting into personal philosophy of why the generation is jacked up. And
Perfect.
I love this topic.
I agree already.
I'm all in.
So, and it comes back
Luke's
to
getting uncomfortable.
Yeah. So it comes back to movies when I was growing up. So in the 70s and 80s, all of the movies, right? All of the heroes in the movies were like something that you could do if you worked hard enough at it. It was like normal. It wasn't normal people, but it was, like Bruce Lee, like Chuck Norris, like Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Rambo.
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone's like Rambo. It was all those things. Like, oh, if I try hard enough, I can be cool like that. I can do those superhuman things.
Yeah.
And the current generation, all of the heroes in every movie they watch has some stupid superpower that's make believe. And for some reason, they walk around and do these like con events, and they like try to dress up and pretend they have these superpowers that they can never, ever, ever have.
Yeah.
So then they have to go, and because they can't have those, then they got to go. Somebody told them at some point they got to go like get a therapist to work this out.
Maybe this goes along with the unrealistic portrayal of the human race through social media.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like everything is always superhuman. It's the best of 100 pictures. 1 out of 100 pictures first.
Oh yeah.
Or it's photoshopped, or everything is more than what it really is supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when my childhood, it was funny. My brother had sent a TikTok or some little clip, but it was like, hey, you can't hurt me. I was born in the 70s. Right. And like it had pictures of kids like making ramps and jumping their bikes on with no safety gear.
Oh,
I mean, that's all we did. We used to call it catamaraning when we get 2 skateboards. You're sitting on one and your legs are on the other one. You're going down parallel down a hill. We just find the biggest hill we could find, all concrete. You're rolling out past the stop sign into the middle of traffic.
Yeah.
And
used to do some stupid shit.
Oh yeah.
Young.
My thing started like 1992.
Here, hold my Kool-Aid.
1992 with the helicopter moms.
Oh yeah.
They raise pussies. That's the problem.
Yeah, they followed them everywhere.
Yeah, they don't let them do anything. They're always on them. They're fighting their battles.
Yeah.
We need to fucking bring back bullying hard at school. That's when all the pussy showed up.
So that's another philosophy is what happens is when you let fights happen in elementary school, like kids punch each other. The great thing is the kids are so small that the only thing they can do is bloody a nose. They can't actually hurt. They can't actually permanently damage their opponent at those ages.
Yeah.
But when you get older, the ramifications are crazy. But if they never got, you got to go back to like Cobra Kai. You've never been punched in the face?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Line up.
You gotta learn how to punch, but you also gotta learn how to control it at the same time. So that's part of that process.
Well, and you learn
and you have consequences. Then you see what happens when you punch somebody in the fucking face.
Yeah.
Now it's like, there's some shit I see online.
Yeah.
Like, nobody punches anybody in the face anymore. Mike Tyson's right.
Yeah.
I do. The thing that cracks me up about the age gap is, you guys, these three guys, have you ever heard when I say Wally World? What am I talking about?
Oh, you're talking about Vacation, the movie Vacation.
Oh, that's a different age gap. Because I think of Walmart.
Yep. Walmart. It's Walmart for us.
So you're thinking Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase.
Original Vacation.
Yeah.
Original.
Yep. Right. And I'm thinking Walmart. So we tell that to him and he goes, "What the fuck?
What's
Wally World?"
They don't even know what Wally World is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But he also didn't know what menopause was. So, we had to enlighten him on that.
We married men. We can educate you on that.
It's interesting the way today's kids, like my kid was my kid's a little more, I don't know, mature or advanced than the normal kids of that age, or even Luke. But often I ask Mason his perspective or his point of view on things, because he thinks so differently than we do. Like a lot of times I just say, what do you think, Mason? Or just ask him a question. Sometimes he's stumped, but sometimes he comes up with some pretty awesome stuff. Just the way he thinks. And
how old is he?
He just turned 15. 15. Yeah. So technically he's the podcast editor at the moment. So he sits in the room with Luke and Owen, and he's just learning how to do it right now. So
cool.
Since we last started.
Back to the movies. The movies are what's wrong with this current generation.
That's right.
I bet.
Oh, let's
circle back to the movies. That's where we started with this, with the movie list with Michael. But circle back to that, and that's what's wrong with a lot of the generation these days. Their parents didn't let them watch these movies that we watched, and we mentioned South Park a second ago. The nice thing about South Park is they offended everybody.
Yeah,
equally.
Yep.
Everybody.
Love South Park.
And it was great. Yeah. But movies, as we were growing up, were very similar to that. Think Mel Brooks, Blazing Saddles.
Oh, you can't show that today.
No.
How many kids have you seen Blazing Saddles? You know what I'm talking about.
Have you seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Hang 'em High, Outlaw Josie Wales, like that's good shit.
Yeah.
But you're right. You can't discuss those in detail today.
Yeah, everybody should watch Family Guy, because they offend everybody. I love Family Guy. It's like South Park light.
Yeah.
But we'd quote Blazing Saddles or something, and Michael would be like,
"What are you talking about?"
How old is
add that movie to your list.
How old is he?
I think he's late 20s. I think. I don't know. We don't know how old our employees are.
What's the median age of the owners?
Well, when Chris joined us, it was like 103. And you guys discovered that Greg was around when Jesus was here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the 4 digits.
But everybody,
Greg and I brought maturity to the group.
Nice.
And class.
In class.
Maturity in class.
Not kindergarten class.
So we have a couple guys still in their 40s, generally early 50s.
Okay. That like it's you think about like companies and where they're at and their stage. You guys are just getting started. As far as people say, oh well, they're just going to let the new stuff fall to the wayside. No, you guys are cutting edge. You guys are pushing the limits on brass and stuff you're bringing out. So it's not like you guys are phasing out of it. You're all going to get out and sell the company in 2 years.
No, there's no desire to do that at this point. We're all in it for at least another 10, I would say.
You definitely got to have a plan. Some type of exit plan at some point, or your growth strategy. And you guys are adding on to your building right now, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. We're adding on 7,500 square feet, put more manufacturing over there. So we're planning on bringing out a lot more things here in the next few years.
Nice. Start somewhere.
Yes. And on that topic, we love a good origin story. Can you take us from the beginning? Maybe Greg could start because he was there.
Yeah.
When Jesus arose. What do they say on the third day?
On the third day.
On the first day. Oh, Marlon probably a better tell of the origin story than me. I'll just kind of, I don't add a lot of color to it. It'd just be cut and dry.
He's an engineer, folks.
Not entertaining.
Yes.
So yeah, Greg can give some of the facts, and then I'll just elaborate on those facts. Is what we'll do. But so we were all at one point or another, except for Chris, who came in recently. All of us met or worked together at some point at Remington. So Remington had an R&D facility they opened in 1995 here in Elizabethtown, and they pulled it away from production purposely so that the R&D people wouldn't get pulled into production tasks and they could focus on development and bringing in new technologies that aren't necessarily used at production facilities. Because a lot of times your production will get hampered or your new product development gets hampered because you're trying to figure out how can we make something and fit it into what we already do, right? How can I make something else with what I have instead of just saying, how do I just make the best product for this category? And so that was the drive. And it was a good idea at the time. And so it was separated, and ammo and firearms engineers were all brought together into one space so that at the first time we actually, before they had the ammunition facility down in Lone Oak, Arkansas, the firearms manufacturing was largely done in Ilion, New York at that time. So they had everybody together. So then you could start doing developmental things. And honestly, in the late 90s, they were completely on the cutting edge. We were doing composite barrels before anybody did composite barrels. We did the electronics system, so electronic ignition fire control, electronic ignition primers.
Right, that guns and ammo project combined, right? Oh.
Several new calibers came out then that Greg worked on. But anyway, you go almost 20 years, and 2014, they decided to reverse all that. Of course, we went through some ownership changes, and at that time we were, Remington was huge. The whole thing was almost $1 billion company. Yeah, it was Freedom Group, and they were just short of $1 billion of revenue in 2013.
Wow.
And so with all the companies combined, and they announced that they were now going to take this opportunity down in Huntsville, Alabama, and they were going to bring R&D and manufacturing and everything to put them all back together down there. So they announced that internally to us in like February 2014, I think. And
here for 20 years.
Yeah, so here for 20 years. Yeah, and so at that time, we were all offered jobs to go. Some of us had already left. I think Greg was already gone.
I was at
tracking point at that time. Mark, one of the other owners, he was gone at that time. He was at Ford. He had worked at Honda before he came to Remington. He was at Remington for about 13 or 14 years and was at Ford. And we were talking about it, and you always have, when you work together that long, you see a lot of things, and because we're in R&D, and Remington would go through different cycles of vertical integration and then also horizontal, so spreading it like being just a assembler. Mm-hmm. So we spent a lot of time in our careers like teaching other companies how to do technologies that Remington wanted so they could be suppliers to Remington. And we saw these companies come up and grow and become, real companies making real products with the technologies we're teaching them, just because Remington didn't want to do it in-house. And so what we ended up talking about all the time was, hey, we should do our own thing. Hey, we should just go do our own thing. And it started out like, hey, we should just have a gun shop and do that. But then we quickly decided we really just don't like dealing with the public. So that's a bad plan.
Oh, I feel that.
There might be days that all of us have a bad attitude about it, and then it's going to be a bad customer experience for somebody coming in the door. Mm-hmm. And so what we talked about it. So when they did that, we actually started meeting weekly. We decided, hey, let's think about actually doing something. We're invested in this area. Maybe we can do something, and this is our chance to do it. And so we started, and we met weekly. We would Zoom Greg in on
I'd be on the iPad.
And we met at this restaurant that had a little private room in the back, so nobody would see us. So none of our bosses could come in and see us all scheming together. Mm-hmm. And so we went through a bunch of different product ideas and what we might do and how we wanted to be a manufacturer. We worked with the University of Kentucky has a small business initiative, and we worked with them, and they helped us develop, like, this is how you do a business plan. Here's introductions to banks for loans if you need capital, working capital to start, and this is how much you're going to need of your own funding. And
Because we weren't business people.
Yeah, we were all engineers. And so we got together, decided we were going to do cases. We had SetPoint was offering this case line. And we honestly thought at the beginning that, hey, SetPoint, they got to be, they're really good at automation. They know what they're doing. And then, but we also understood that they probably don't know everything about brass, but we do. And so we can make that work. And so that's what we decided to do. We wrote a business plan. We met weekly. And then on January 2nd, so the day coming back after the first, the four of us that were left at Remington all dropped all quit that day.
Put all that together?
Mass exodus.
Yeah, we all quit that day.
I know what that feels
like. Did the higher ups?
Oh yeah, there was emergency meetings. All of a sudden, all the managers were gone for like half the day, and they were coming back, and it's bittersweet because we learned a lot with Remington. At that point, the defense group was very high, and we were winning everything at the time. And we were always in the top 1 or 2 solicitors for all these competitions. So everything was going very well. And when we gave our letters of resignation, 3 of us worked in the defense group. So the defense R&D group lost 3 of 4 people. And when we dropped our resignation letters, of course, it was on our ADG letterhead already. We'd already developed our letterhead. So we did that. And I remember our boss at the time looked at him and he goes, well, based on the letterhead, I'm assuming this wasn't just an overnight decision.
That's why you're the boss.
Yeah. And so we went to that first SHOT Show then. Literally, we didn't have financing for the equipment, so we were still negotiating that with SetPoint. We were going on our own money. We decided we were doing the consulting work. So for the consulting work at that time, we had a trifold pamphlet and a story to tell, and hoping somebody would hire us.
All
kind
right.
of thing. So yes,
hoping a dream.
Yeah. So we were essentially suitcasing, trying to sell our services, which I think is not allowed at SHOT Show. But we went. We didn't even have supplier. How did we get in?
I don't know. Did I get you in for tracking?
Maybe for tracking. I don't remember.
I know you guys stayed at my hotel room. Everybody crashed in my hotel room.
Yeah. We were carpetbagging.
I was there for tracking point.
I was like five dudes in one bed.
I was duly employed.
Yes. Yeah. And then we started on our own. We got our first consulting clients there. I think we didn't get our first actual check until like maybe we did some work initially in January and February and got our first actual income like in February or March. And then Greg joined us in about June timeframe.
Might have been earlier than that. Might have been April or May.
Yeah, and then Mark joined us from Ford he came in around I think September, October. And then we were full steam ahead.
Greg's like, you guys quit. I'm going to hang back and see how this looks in a couple of months. And then I'll quit.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, we were phasing everybody in because initially, like the first several months, none of us took salaries. The first 4 of us that started, none of us were taking salaries for several months.
This was like
2015, beginning of 2015. Okay. Yeah, so then we got the SetPoint line up and going, and that's 2 or 3 episodes. That's 2 or 3 episodes of podcast. There's a lot that went on there, but that's where we met Derek Peterson. Their cell was set up right next to ours. All our competitors were there. They were all at the same place.
Did either of you know about each other before you met at SetPoint?
No, we didn't.
So you happened to show up, and there's another.
We understood that SetPoint was selling multiple lines, and that they had already sold 1 or 2 at the time, and we were number 2 or number 3. I forget which.
Yeah.
And so we knew that was going on, but we didn't know it was Derek Peterson or Alpha, whoever it was. So
You guys want to go into when you showed up? They're all right next to each other.
I mean, yeah, we can.
That's funny to me when you said that.
It is. So we show up, and and the line is generally set up as a U, the way it operates and the product flows. And so we go in, and Derek Peterson is in the corner. So his line is right there, and they're running parts like production, and he's making parts for some people and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he basically had the first generation equipment that was for commercial purposes. Set Point had done developed equipment for Lake City prior to this, and that's what got them into, hey, we can do this and sell it for the commercial market. And Derek, I think his was the first line.
Yeah. Now the Set Point sales guys were great at selling because they wined and dined us at SHOT Show, and at that time, of course, everything was going out the door in 2015 even, and we were going to get 308, 300 Win Mag, and 338 Lapua, and it was like, it was pretty much sold to us as, hey man, you turn this thing on, you're just printing money. Here you go, keep it going.
Salesman.
Yes, and it didn't exactly print money, exactly right, but anyway,
or make 300 Win Mag or make 338 Lapua.
Yeah, or make those. So when we got there, but Derek's line is the Peterson line is set up like, and literally like the back side of their draw side is 3 feet from the back side of our finish side.
Oh,
so like,
man.
we're like literally like you're right next to each other. Kind of
Crazy.
thing. And so one of the first things, of course, Greg went out there at first and he's checking it all out, and he comes back, and we decided immediately to say, hey, look, we know that there's going to be some developmental stuff going on after Greg got his initial week or so out there. And we were concerned with, hey, other competitors learning what we're doing, right? So we put in a fence and a curtain. And at first that did not go well for making
with
friends.
With a gate that was locked.
Yeah, with a gate that we could lock on the front. And it did not go well for making friends initially. So not only were we all next to each other, but we didn't exactly do the right things to set up super great ties with our competitors. That's since changed. I mean, Derek is they're a good family, great family, and honestly, this last year he got us out of a huge jam when we had an equipment failure, and he had some spares that he actually let us borrow to keep going.
Nice.
Which really saved our bacon.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, thanks, Derek Peterson.
Yeah, healthy competition and good company is always a good thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
They're a solid group of guys over there too,
Yeah.
having already been through their factory and whatnot. Yeah,
Yep.
Good people.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do things a little differently than they do. I'm sure they do things a little differently than we do. But they do have a really good product. I got to say, when we look at the competitors that we have, we believe that we are better and more consistent than Lapua. We also believe that Peterson and Alpha are probably better and more consistent than Lapua, generally speaking. So
was Alpha the third person that was at Set Point at that time?
No, there was Lockerman.
Yeah, they ended up in Vegas or something.
Yeah, and then there was another one.
Oh, so there's another Set Point line out there somewhere.
No, not anymore.
Oh, okay.
No, I think all the Set Point lines. There's one down in Tennessee.
At Virog.
Yeah, Virog has one down in Tennessee. I believe all they make on it is 338 Lapua Magnum.
Really?
I think that's all they use it for. And then I think Peterson has 3 of the lines, and then Alpha has 1 of the lines. So there were 6 total made.
Nice.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's how we get started in brass. And like anybody else, when we started, we were engineers, again, not necessarily marketing or business people. We've come a long way and learned a lot. But our initial plan was we were going to have like 2 OEM customers. We're just going to make brass for these guys and send them all this brass. And that was our plan. And that plan in 2015, late 2016, when we finally got the line up and going, 2016, the bottom dropped out of the market for OEM.
Yeah.
So everybody had everybody had invested in infrastructure. And so all of a sudden our OEMs could not support our volumes that we could create. And so we got into, well, what else are we going to do? And that's when Greg started internal development on the rums.
Yeah, the rums and the Psalms. Yeah, and our first OEM customers at the time, just a little backstory, were SIG. SIG was located actually here in Kentucky at L-Tech. They were making all their pistol ammo. That was all they were making at the time. The guys who were at SIG were ex-Remington people as well, so we all knew each other. They were getting into and wanting to expand into the rifle business. They knew us. We knew them. We started supplying them the 308 and 300 Win Mag brass that we were making with their head stamp, of course. And this is while they were doing their development of their Jacksonville plant. Once the plant down in Jacksonville got up and running, then we didn't provide them brass any longer.
Gotcha.
What years was that?
2016.
Yeah,
2016, 2017.
Yeah,
Okay. I remember during the middle of COVID, we were getting some SIG brass from a wholesaler.
Yeah, that was
SIG brass, but it did not look like your brass.
No,
yeah, that was probably stuff that they made in Jacksonville.
Yeah. They were just trying to offload it. It was not very good.
It was not ADG.
It was not ADG. No.
Well, actually, one of the initial reports we got when they made the 308 stuff that for us, when they first came out with that, everybody was talking about how great and consistent and how accurate that round was.
Really?
Yeah, that they made. And then things started. If you look at reviews in history, they fell off after that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You want to tell about the name? The
Atlas. So Atlas, we came up with the name. So required reading, which honestly, to be honest, required listening to audiobook for me. Right, I don't spend a lot of time reading. I'm more
attention, Luke.
Yeah. So was a book called Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. It's a long read, but essentially to get the whole story down, what happens is you have this society that is created in the past, actually. But anyway, it's a society, and everybody is concerned about essentially appearance. It's a very woke society, so we want to make sure everybody has a fair cut of this, and everybody gets fair opportunities, and this kind of thing. And what happens is the doers, so the people who are developing technology and the people who are making beneficial changes to the world through bringing out better products, well, they're not getting necessarily paid fairly because a bunch of their money that they earn or what they earn for that goes to spread out amongst these things. So they literally quit and leave society. So there is a secret community that they create with technology that they can hide from the rest of the world. And these people just disappear, and then they go there where they have a system of barter and trade and fair value for fair product kind of system. And so all of the doers, and pursuit of excellence. So everybody is there. They encourage competition, and all the doers leave society and let society crumble under its own thing. And society collapses, and these people survive in their little community.
There's a movie that almost follows that to a T. It's called Tomorrowland. We guys see Tomorrowland. That almost follows that too. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have not seen it.
So they go into like it's this group of people. Yeah, they have all the technology, and they go through. It looks like Disneyland almost, and they go through a little ride, and it takes them to their alternate universe or their other space. And it's just engineers and creators, and of course you go there, people are flying around with jetpacks, and there's spaceships and all this kind of shit. But and then of course Earth is crumbling because they developed this lens where they can look into the future. Well, it turns out being able to look into the future, the machine was actually causing Earth to collapse because it was like this big circle.
Oh, yeah.
So they had to destroy the lens that they could see the future with in order to stop Earth from crumbling. But anyways.
Yeah, so that's where Atlas came from. And then the logo, the triangle logo with the 3 balls on it, right? That came from essentially when we were doing our business development. Brent was talking, we were presenting ourselves to one of the banks or something, and Brent was talking about it. We didn't have a logo at that time. And he was talking about, so what we see ourselves as, so we have this when we started, we're going to do this case line manufacturing thing. That's one of the balls. We're doing, we're going to do consulting work. So we're going to do product development for companies on the DL. In the background, we have, that's the second ball. And then the third ball when we started, we were going to do SIB or SBIR work, which was governmental development, technology development contracting.
Question of the week powered by ADG.
What net tension should I run
The proper neck tension for you to use is the neck tension that gives you the most accuracy out of your system and your reloading process. Most people, when they're thinking about neck tension, most people consider it a diameter difference between your loaded round and your mouth ID before you load it. Most people run 2-3 thousandths neck tension. More neck tension is generally better than less neck tension from accuracy and consistency of your interior ballistic cycle. Your velocity variation in SDs and ESs will be less with generally higher bullet pulls, and that's higher neck tension. There is a limit. Obviously, you can go too high on the neck tension where you end up deforming your bullet as you're seating it in the shell, or worse, you buckle your shell and crush your shoulder and those kinds of things.
So that's where the 3 balls came from, and then together they're all linked, and we become this one company, that's going to grow these 3 revenue streams.
Mm-hmm.
And the SBIR stuff never really took off. The guy we brought on for that ended up knew a lot of people, but didn't really know how to write. So the big part of that is writing these solicitations and that kind of thing. So that really never happened. So that didn't really happen. And so we ended up focusing on the consulting mostly and now new products we're bringing up. And eventually we will be a manufacturing company of a lot of things.
There you go.
And we'll keep our consulting clients that are, we'll probably keep some of them. We've had some long-term relationships with them. And at this point, so part of our consulting was not only are we doing for them, but we don't like to do things in a black box. We want to teach people as we go. So all of our consulting, we spend time teaching their engineers how to design guns. It's one of the things that we saw. We love the industry. We love the products. We want to see better products and the best products out there. And so our consulting work, instead of just doing something and handing it over, we're like, hey, if you have engineering staff, we want them involved. We want to teach them how to do this. Because like engineers come out of school now, you can go work for an automotive company. They teach you brake systems and hydraulic systems and all this kind of stuff. They teach you structural calculations and how to do CAD and all these kind of things. But they don't teach you firearms, which there's no steady state. When a firearm operates, there's no steady state for a firearm. It's an explosion that's controlled, and then everything ends, and then you do it again. And you do it again. Yeah, hopefully you do it again. Most times. I mean, so we're perfectly happy with our consulting clients teaching their engineers how to do these things and how to design firearms. These are the things you got to worry about. These are the things you got to test. These are the things that you get sued for. These are the things that, And so we never hit anything consulting wise. And our idea was, even though it seems like, hey, you're not keeping the secret sauce to yourself, the whole idea is that, well, we would start with them and helping them maybe do full developmental projects for them. But then at the end, they're going to have their own internal team to do that. And then we just come in when there's like heavy lifting required. Like, hey, we need a little extra help to do this, to get this across the finish line. Hey, we're having a little problem here that our guys don't understand. Can you help us on this? Or, hey, we can't quite figure this problem out. Can you help us figure this problem out? And so with some of our clients, that's where we are now. So we're actually at a position where they're generally doing all their stuff themselves. And occasionally we get a call and say, hey, we had a failure at this, or we have this issue we can't solve. Can you guys help? And then we jump in and help them and know they're guys on a first name basis. If we go to somebody, we like to wear their stuff. We don't necessarily wear our logo stuff because we don't want anybody to feel like they're being threatened, like they're looking to. We have no interest in replacing engineers at firearms companies with us.
Nice.
You know what they say about consulting, though? Just makes other people rich.
I got to tell you, I was very anti-consultant all the way up to 2015.
I imagine it is quicker paychecks.
But it did help you fill in the gap, like you said, and get ADG as a brass manufacturer off the ground. And,
right.
All these things were necessary evils to get where you are today. And I think it's interesting how businesses kind of evolve over time, and you kind of have to let the river somewhat push you in the right direction, right, and not resist too much, because you end up making mistakes that cost you a bunch of money, or don't make right decisions, things like that. But yeah, it's interesting how the actual market that you're trying to get in on kind of pushes you in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to when you were talking about the unknown munitions origin story. I think it was a question somebody asked, hey, I want to start start a custom ammo business.
Yeah.
And you happen to be at the right time, at the right place.
I was going to bring
a
that
lot
up.
of things happen.
And you guys are the same to me.
Yeah.
So at the time when you went through the OEMs, like the OEM drop off, let's say in 2016, whatever. Well, once COVID hit late 2019 into 2020, right when we started, I got in with you, and it was easy money on my side, which I'm sure basically everything you guys made was sold. It was never a guess of whether or not it was going to, leave the floor and things like that. And it was easy money at the time. Everything was just moving.
Yeah.
Moving very nice. I know most of your brass before it ever hit me was sold, and we had to grow our, I guess, market share a little bit. So from ordering a half a case to a whatever.
Yeah. It
Now
started
it's
out
half
individual
truck.
boxes of these things to cases. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But it was, COVID did a lot for my business, especially, and I'm sure yours too. Basically just made it so anything was easy to sell.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to buy everything.
Yeah. We had a back order one time of like almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's what forced us into 2 shifts, which is not as easy as everybody says. Oh, just do 2 shifts. I guess, I don't know what they think. Like, oh,
2 shifts, just make another line.
Just make another line. Yeah. And you're like, well, okay, so do 2 shifts. I mean, the 2 shifts for us, you're talking about first you got to bring in staff to be able to train for the second shift. That takes several months to get them to the training point that they can operate independently. Right. And the second thing is you need the capital investment. You need just cash wise to I doubled my raw material income, your input, and outflow of cash and everything else. The payroll changes, and initially you don't have the income to support all that. So it was probably bringing up that second shift was probably about a $300,000 to $400,000 cash hit to the company to do that.
And I know your tooling too, all your backup tooling and everything else that you've done to keep the line going is not cheap.
Yeah, no. That was a huge investment last year we made. So in the previous time, we had always, when we do production, we would run, because the way our line runs, you can only run 1 caliber at a time. So we'd do a caliber run, and then we would wait and sort of time it to say, okay, if we're running, let's say we're going to run 7 PRC in April next year. Right. Then in the past, we would then order our tooling that we needed. So any depleted tooling, we would order it in maybe 10 weeks ahead of that. So
it came in just in time.
Yeah. So we ordered our tooling, it'd come in just in time and put it in service and go. In the last year and a half, we actually changed that whole philosophy and invested a ton of money in. We now do a run, and then we order all the replacement tooling for anything that was consumed immediately after that run finishes. So on our shelves in here, we've got tooling to run any caliber at any given time. I can switch it any time. It gives me way more flexibility because I can change quantities of orders, or Chris can. We can change quantities of orders. We can switch order of production. Largely, and Chris can talk to this a little more, but we do production by families.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a good time to talk about that so people understand.
Yeah, so most of our production is by family. So if we do a Psalm family or we do the Rum family, we'll run all those calibers sort of together.
So 7 rum, 300 rum, 338 rum, obviously the Psalms, the 6, 6, 5, 7, and then PRCs. Are all 3 PRCs the same family for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, and how about 7 rum mag, 300 Win mag?
They're their own thing. Greg loves them.
Yep. Yes, if we understand the bell ones. The hard. Well, luckily they tend to be now that 7 PRC and 300 PRC are out, those two tend to not be as popular as the new guys are.
It could be worse. You're gonna have to make Weatherby.
Oh.
Yeah, we've heard that's pretty tough too with the rounded shoulders and all that.
Yeah, I think Peterson's making them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that radius shoulder has
maybe.
to be fun with the belted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so families of cartridges, as you guys are working through your production schedule, it's not cost effective to just do a 7 PRC in the middle of a Psalm run, for example, right? Because the tooling changeover is more in depth,
right?
Change from family to family,
right? So we try to minimize the tooling changeovers as we can. Here, I'll give this to Greg.
I mean, it's just from an efficiency point of view, it takes different machines are different. It takes, 15 minutes to change over a draw machine. It takes an hour to change over a taper machine. Anytime you can eliminate that changeover, that full changeover, then you're saving time and that you're making more product.
Oh yeah.
Everything's just more efficient that way.
Yeah.
So, if we're making short for example, like a transition from one family to another, just to take it to the next level. We'll try to run 6.5 PRC at the end of the PRC run. And then what's after that, it will be my 7 Psalms.
Okay.
So you think about it, the length is
so you
the
go
same.
from big to small, and then
Correct.
from small to big.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Just from an efficiency point of view, that, it's not a big deal, but, again, it's time to change over the collator plates and to get the feed mechanism to work right for the shorter or the longer shells.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And the more you can minimize that, the better.
How much does a complete family, how much time does a complete family changeover take?
Well, I mean, the way we run, you saw on the tour yesterday.
Yeah,
right?
I know you kind of do it like continuously as you're moving, and like the one line is finishing, and then you're bringing the second one in behind.
Yeah. So if I do a changeover and it starts on draw 1, let's say it requires everything new on every machine, then draw 1 will happen, and then draw 1 will run that day, and then the next day draw 2 will get changed over, then the next day draw 3 and pocket and head gets changed over.
Okay.
And then the next day it's coming off the end of the line as
Gotcha.
finished product.
So it's never a shutdown startup situation.
No, it's always
continuous.
Continual flow.
Why don't you explain what machines we have, how the brass?
Okay, well, that's fine. That would maybe be helpful. Typically, we do everything in 3 draws. All the products are done in 3 separate draw operations, and that's taking the raw material, the cups that we buy, and basically doing diameter reduction and wall thickness reduction, and getting the wall thicknesses, everything the way we want them coming out of draw 3.
The cups kind of look like if anybody ever touches PVC pipe or does sprinklers or something, it looks like a end cap for like a 1/2-inch piece of PVC, right? So
it's just a lot thicker and a lot heavier.
It's thick and it has a rounded bottom to it, but it looks like a bottle cap that has a rounded deal, but it's a real thick piece of brass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Perfect description.
And then what we make at the end, at the end of the draw process, that thing, which used to be, 1/2 inch high, is now, 3 or 4 inches tall.
So the draw means you're stretching and pulling it and making it longer.
Yes, I'm reducing the diameter, and I'm mainly reducing the wall thickness.
There we go.
So as that wall thickness gets thinner and thinner, then the parts get longer and longer. So after the draw process, then we move on to what we call the back end of the line. And the back end of the line is where the first step of that is what we call pocket and head. That's where we put in the primer pocket and the head stamp for the caliber that the product's going to be. After that, that gives some excess material. It goes to head turn. We actually turn the profile of the rim and the extractor groove. And that's at that point, people may be familiar. That would be what some people would call basic brass, right? So it's, the head of the shell is formed, but there's no body taper, no shoulder angle, nothing else at that point. So then the next step is producing that shoulder angle and doing that work. That's BAT, body anneal and taper. After that, then the shells get trimmed and the flash hole gets punched out, and the final step is mouth and neck anneal. So it's a multi-step process, and that's why it takes, several days if you're not interrupting a production of a previous product that the machine's already set up on. It just takes that time to process that material through all the different machines.
So
roughly from raw material in the cup that you've described to the finished cartridge case, roughly about 5 days. So to get around the horn, as we would describe it, and ready for hand inspection.
Okay. And then once you're at hand inspection, how much time till it ships out the door?
We'll inspect, if we're running steady state, we would expect our operators to be able, in a given shift, we would hope that we would be inspecting roughly about 30 baskets, which would be 500 parts per basket in an 18-hour shift.
Okay.
So, depending upon what we're producing, if we're producing for an OEM customer, as Marlon described earlier, we're going to either pallet a complete pallet of roughly 27,000 pieces and ship when the pallet is ready, or a crated product. If it's an OEM customer that might be nickel plating that, we'll roughly have 27, somewhere in that general area.
Gotcha.
If we are producing for ADG, then it's a continual flow, as you saw from hand inspection to pack out. There's a continual flow of that with a final inspection at the packing state, and we're shipping product to our dealer network continually from there.
And you guys just recently broke a record on the line. Is that something you want to do? You want to share your pieces per day, or is that proprietary? Or
no, we're constantly measuring throughput on each machine. So our operators on the HMI screen will have a date and a production number that would be an all-time high for that machine. And as we break that particular record, I'll update that so that the guys have a spot on the wall to look at. And it's just a general reminder to, as we'll call it, feed the beast. Keep raw product, keep work in product or product flow, work in progress and process in that collator bowl. If we can keep the collator bowl running, and as Greg described, if our transition and changeover is quick and accurate, then we should be breaking those particular records. And that's that's important. As we joked about yesterday, there's a big difference between income and may come. So the way we generate the income there is to keep product going out the back door.
Yes. And it's good to have a goal and a record that you want to break too,
Yeah, I think, motivation for the operators and I think one of the things that's, part of my responsibility is to make sure that we are connecting the dots for the operators to understand why we want to continue to have, best product in the world, all the sum of all those parts, making sure that we're inspecting the right way, that we're doing quality control checks that we talked about and described it. All of that is connected on the dot of we want to do that quickly as well. It's not an either or situation. It's both and. We both have to be incredibly accurate, incredibly meticulous, and fast at the same time.
So I think one of the most often asked questions that you guys brought up was is your brass annealed? And I think it's a good time to bring that up. So just so everybody understands, a brass cartridge must be annealed to become a brass cartridge, no matter what. Like it's impossible to bring that cup to a final piece without having been annealed several times during the production process. So you guys have the 3-stage draw. So it is annealed full body in between each one of those draws.
It's completely annealed. The head, the body, the whole shell is annealed in between the draws.
And then at what point do you get to before now it's just the shoulder mouth area that's annealed?
Right. So that's what we call body kneel and taper. The body kneel is that operation as you described. We're just annealing just the top half of the shell.
Because you want to keep that hardness through the body and in the case head. You don't want to anneal that again.
Nope. We want to keep that strength that we worked real hard to get that all set up right coming off of draw 3. So
3 times full body, and then how many times?
2 times.
2 times full body, and then after that, how many times for the...
Two additional anneals after that, right?
Okay.
The reason for the anneal is the brass work hardens. As you work it and form it, it gets harder and harder, and it'll eventually get to the point where if you don't anneal it and you try to do more work to it, it just tears and splits and cracks, and you just can't form it anymore. It's just the nature of brass. Anybody has like an old wire hanger, you bend it, it eventually breaks, right? So, that's work hardening, and it just works that way.
So that sometimes you'll get splits in the neck area because the shoulder neck area is moving the most each time you fire the brass and you resize it.
Correct.
This case head area, or sometimes we call it the 200 line or whatever, the case head area doesn't have a lot of movement. In fact, if you have too much movement here, that's when big problems happen. If there's mismatches between the size of the brass and the size of the chamber in your rifle, you guys can experience 200 line splits and case heads coming off and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, case head separations are generally not caused by diameter differences. It's more headspace. Issues. If the headspace of the brass is too short versus your chamber, and let's say you're bumping the shoulder back, you think you're bumping it back 2,000s, but you're really bumping it back 20,000s, right?
Okay.
If you do that a couple times, you're going to end up with case head separation because the brass is going to stretch.
Oh yeah, that's definitely extreme. We're
Yeah,
playing what do you call that, musical chairs?
Yeah, with the microphone.
Musical
headphones.
So if you think about it, when you what people don't realize is when you bump that shoulder up, right? Internally, you're putting that pressure. It's pushing forward on the shoulder, and it's like taking this whole shell. You're holding the back, right? That's pressure's holding the back, and you're pulling it. So it's going to elongate along its whole distance. And if you bump one back a lot, you actually can get a failure back here. It actually will thin out the base of the shell.
Yeah.
Back here is where that thinning is coming.
I guess the point
It's taking the whole front of it and pushing it forward.
You're not supposed to be bumping 20 thou. Is the
No.
point. So to go back to like the general, so the idea is when you pull the trigger and the brass expands to the shape of your chamber, and then it restricts instantaneously almost. So that you can extract the brass out of your chamber. You want that brass movement from a resized piece of brass to the shape of your chamber to be the minimum amount of movement possible to extend the life of your brass.
Correct.
And that's in all the dimensions, not just a shoulder bump or case head, whatever the situation might be. You want minimal brass movement.
Right. And that's part of why we're coming out with like the reamers and the dies is they're specifically designed around our internal requirements for the shell dimensions.
Yep.
So we have shell dimensions, and the reamers are set up for that dimension shell to be fired in this, which still meets SAMI requirements. So all of our SAMI compliant ones, the chambers are SAMI compliant. They're not below SAMI min or anything. And then our resizing dies will size that back to an appropriate amount to allow the best amount of expansion and contraction.
Yep. That's to get the most life out of your brass.
And just to tie it back to the original discussion about the anneals, after taper, the brass has been work hardened again, forming that neck and the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't anneal the brass after that forming operation, then you'll end up, if you see that you can see the bullet in it.
Uh-huh.
But if you do that and you don't shoot it right away, then all that stress is built up in there, and it'll split.
Yep.
And you see that if your reloading process or your chamber, the brass is expanding out as you fire it, and then you size it back down. If that diameter change is excessive and you do not anneal, you'll eventually end up having splits in your neck. It's great if you want the most consistency is to anneal after every fire.
Every firing. Correct.
The competition generally will if they're competing on the world class level.
Yeah. And as I understand it properly, I saw some different temperatures, out on the floor, but let's say we use Tempelac, 750 degree Fahrenheit Tempelac is the most commonly used tool. It's not a tool. So just so you guys, Tempelac goes inside the case mouth. If you're going to heat it up with a torch or whatever, it's indicating when it melts that you've hit 750 degrees, but that's the most common temperature for annealing.
Well, there's, Marlon can speak to this a little bit better than me, but there's two different anneals. There's a full anneal, which is what we do in our draw anneals, basically. And then there's stress relieving anneal.
Okay.
And the mouth and neck anneal operation and the body anneal operation. And to your point, the Tempelac, that kind of thing, that's more of a stress relief.
Okay, copy.
Heat treatment.
Yeah.
And then
you definitely don't want to anneal any other part of the brass other than the top. So we're only stress relieving. The full body annealing is left to the manufacturer, basically. Mm-hmm. But to go back to your point, we mentioned neck tension. Yesterday we were doing a tour, and there's three things that control the neck tension. That was the hardness of the brass, the diameter, the ID, and what else did we say?
The wall thickness.
The wall thickness of the neck. Okay, so you guys can control, basically, by buying quality brass, you're controlling the neck thickness because you're relying on the manufacturer to have a consistently thick neck. So then in your garage, you're controlling the hardness of the brass by annealing every firing. And then you're controlling ID by your loading process, whether it be a mandrel, generally whether the mandrel is inside your sizing die or you use it as a separate operation. That's how you're controlling your ID. So that's the best thing you can do. I also, deburr and chamfer to me is important. If you have a sharp edge on the inside of your neck and it drags or skins that bullet as you're seating the bullet, that can introduce varying degrees of neck tension because you're moving material as you're seating the bullets.
Correct. I mean, we don't prep our brass in any way, shape, or form. What you get is what comes off the machine. Our process does tend to leave a decent mouth burr. So at an absolute minimum, deburr the mouth, ID and OD.
We get that question asked also is what do we do to the new brass before we load it? So having to have the brass perform the best it can as a new piece of brass that's not fire formed to a chamber. So we expand in three-way trim. a brand new piece of brass before it gets loaded. So those of you guys that are wondering what that process might be, but yeah. So you recommend to maybe not expand, but at least deburr the ID.
If it was me and not knowing anything, my recommendation to anybody would be to deburr the mouth and then resize it, at least the neck, to your process. And that way, the first time you seat the bullet, it's as close as it can be to the next time you're going to seat the bullet. Because the mouth ID that I provide in the brass that you buy from me is not the same as what your process is going to make.
Yep.
It just, by chance it might be.
Yep.
But in general, it's not the same.
And how about so for a neck tension target, meaning the difference in the bullet caliber to the ID of the neck there, we generally say that it's not so important what the exact neck tension is, more that it's consistent from one round to another. So if you choose to have 1,000th of neck tension or 5,000ths or whatever it might be, but there is some performance gain or loss depending on how much neck tension you do have. In other words, a little bit more neck tension tends to perform a little better. Is that true?
Yeah. A lot of your factory ammo that has a cantilevered bullet, the shell's crimped, not ideal for long range accuracy or whatever. Many different factors there, but they do that to increase the neck tension without having to rely on the anneal or the wall thickness. You can control it with the crimp. Most long range shooters, most people who use our brass are probably not using a crimp. So the neck tension, as getting back to your point, is what is the factor there? And that 1,000ths or 2,000ths or 3,000ths, the more that is, generally speaking, the more consistent your powder burn is going to be, and the more consistent your velocity is going to be, and therefore the more accurate your loads will be. However, there's obviously a point where you can have too much neck tension, and you try to seat a bullet, and you just crush the shell. You collapse the neck. A bad mouth burr can even cause that. How fast you seat the bullet,
40-degree shoulders
can cause that. Yes, a steeper shoulder angle affects all that.
Yep. So for those guys Yep. For those guys, or compressing a load, all those different things. So for those of you guys that like to tinker, you can play with neck tension and see if that affects your load performance, ESSD, those kind of things. So that was a good amount of technical details there. So now I guess we should talk about maybe your guys' production schedule.
So, as we were describing earlier, through the course of the year, we're producing brass by family. And again, to reduce the amount of time that is required doing the caliber changeover through the process around the horn, machine by machine.
And maybe I could be wrong, but it seems like you guys kind of target twice a year per family. Is that generally what you're looking for?
Generally, and depending upon total volume, what the marketability is going to be in terms of general sales request, what we've got in dealer orders. We're looking at all of that at the beginning, at the end of the year, to generally look at the next year's schedule. So
yeah, part of it's annual volume. So like, unless all of a sudden everybody wants 375 rum that we talked about last podcast, right? Generally that would run once a year, or maybe even once every 2 years, because there's just not a big driver for that. So when we do make any specific caliber, we try to make at least a day's production worth. So like 15,000 pieces of 375 rum will last quite a long time. And then we'll wait until our supply dwindles before we put it back on the schedule again.
Got it. So what's coming for 2025?
So 2025, we talked a little bit about some of our new calibers that we're introducing. I know the topic of interest for you guys is the 6UM.
Never heard of it.
So we've got you on
get
the
some.
We've got you on the schedule here for
Yes, I'm very interested in this.
for March.
Oh shit!
I thought I had heard March, April before.
So
Nice.
if you guys listened a week prior to this, they said some bullshit like
August or like wait.
I'm happier in the puppy of two Peters with March.
Yep, and Chris just became our new marketing guy.
Nice.
Oh,
There we
the
go.
hype guy.
There we go.
Yeah, so we're
Awesome. So that's the whole song. So the whole song family is going to run in the March, April time frame. Okay.
Yeah, so then we're going to start out. We'll be in that general area. We're doing. We'll move to rums. That's going to be roughly about that April-May time frame.
How about first thing coming right now? You guys are running. You were running 7 PRC on the line yesterday. Did you start with 6.5 and ending with 300?
No, in this particular case, we ran into an issue when we started 7 PRC with some tooling in a machine. So we swapped it immediately to 300 PRC.
Right.
So we ran our 300 PRC ahead of the 7.
Okay.
So we're finishing with 7. And then we'll be going on to, I think, the belted mags are next. So we'll do a
Greg's
run
favorite.
of
LRMs
Greg's favorite. He's super excited coming out of the holidays to come back and be right into belted magnums. And then after that, we're going to do
belted mags January.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to do, which we haven't run in a while, we're going to run Lapua's and Norma Mags at that time. So right after that. So Lapua's and Norma Mags use their own cups. So we only use a few sizes of cups, the raw material. And so they're their own thing. And then also
6.8 Western comes in after that. A lot of requests and a lot of excitement and continuing questions about that. So we've got a
that's end of February for 6.8 Western.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah. Then we're going to be moving into some
OEM
customer runs. That's going to carry us through roughly about mid-March, and then 6UM pops in. And
just so you guys know, so if you guys back order or pre-order the brass on UM's website today, you would be getting it from that very first production run.
Correct.
In March.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Perfect.
Right. And
we have on the schedule, you said something about 100,000 pieces.
Well, that's a lot.
I'm just kidding.
I was like, I don't remember saying 100,000.
I've calculated in my brain, who the fuck can we get to? We could probably we could sell 50.
It's this. So
at least 2 days.
Yeah, this is the essentially what would be in our process, the LRIP run. So we're giving you essentially 2 full days of production. So the expectation would be around 30,000 pieces after.
Perfect.
I got a customer related question. It's what causes these shifts? Like you'll say 1 month, and then it'll be 2 months later.
Well, just like here today, they literally broke a tool on the line and had to make a change on the fly.
Right, but people don't understand that. They're like, why does that push you 2 months for 1 day mess?
I will say this. I'm not sure exactly who's responsible for the scheduling, but in my experience as one of your larger dealers, I would say that the quarterly, which we like to put in the product description as soon as you guys said it to me, it does tend to shift about a month late consistently every quarter.
Yeah. So we're trying to get better at that.
Yeah.
Well, it's
that's where the questions come from Ryan, right? So like between unknown conditions, obviously most Rockslide customers are coming to Unknown to purchase their ADG brass because I put that schedule in there.
Right.
And we're often talking about it, whether it be the podcast or whatnot.
Yeah.
And when they see that schedule, we get those emails. Like for the 6.8 Western guys that bought initially, that moved a little bit for that particular run. And so
one of the significant impacts for us, just when you think about the general operation of the case line, our entire operation, when we moved to second shift and we expanded our production day, so we're running an 18-hour production day, Monday through Thursday, alternating Fridays. We really can't go any more than that without a significant impact on reduction of preventative maintenance, right? So on any given day, with the nature of all of the various functions that are going on, what generally is going to pop us back in meeting a targeted quarterly schedule will be the crazy things that you guys witnessed yesterday. So while you were here just day one, we had a particular tooling issue at our initial draw cell. So there was time that was required to tear that down, clean that out, prepare new tooling. That machine was down about an hour and a half in that process. We had a washer pump issue. So, there are constant things. A washer pump goes out, a punch on a draw press. We got a part upside down and Max Shatterer. So all of that process of doing a repair, replacing a pump, rebuilding a particular piece of equipment, and our guys are really good at getting that done quickly, but it impacts time.
I mean,
So
it's
also
1,000 fucking moving parts out
Yeah,
there. It
and
really
we run.
is.
Yeah.
The other part of that is generally speaking for our production schedule, we're running to the number and not to the day.
Right.
So if we have on the schedule, let's say, 30,000 pieces of 6UM, right? We're going to run to the number and not the day. So if we have a few issues, then we might end up adding a day to that particular production to get to the 30,000 part. Right. So we start
for
out
net.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so when we start on the production board, which you guys saw over by the pack out, there's a production board that's up there, the electronic board that you saw, and there was a number of baskets. That's the key thing they're doing.
Yeah.
So that number of baskets means we're going to run that number of baskets through draw one before we switch calibers.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to run, let's say for a production, we're going to run 93 baskets through. We're just going to keep running 93 baskets of that, and then we're going to swap it to the next thing that we're running.
Yeah.
Um,
We're saying it's a day of production, but in reality, it's not a day of production.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It'll be X number of baskets that'll go on there, which would be if everything was running perfectly, it's one day.
Yeah.
And so our schedule really gets pushed towards the end. Now, last year we had a significant event that I alluded to that, actually some equipment that Peterson had that he let us borrow got us out of, but that literally cost us it was March time frame, February, March.
Roughly a 7-week period of time.
Yeah, but it literally initially cost us a 2.5 week delay, and then we were running on borrowed time, so we couldn't get full production rates for a couple months.
Yeah.
Right.
Till we got back to full production rates and everything. And once we got back to full production rates, it's held pretty steadily. Bring it in. We try to set the schedule that we created so that we can be. Like next year's schedule, we are more conservative on what we're publishing so that what we tell you guys, our goal is to actually hit the time frames.
Okay.
And number of production days is built upon and based upon what our experience was the last time that we ran that particular cartridge caliber
pieces per day,
impacted by scrap rates.
Yep.
So, as we continue to make either engineering improvements on a machine or process improvements, then the goal is that we are reducing scrap, increasing output, constricting time, and not missing by a month.
Yep.
Right. So again, a lot of moving parts in that process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Manufacturing is tough.
Manufacturing is tough. Yeah. My background, I mentioned yesterday, rookie on the team. I came from the newspaper industry. So I retired early. I've known Marlon for well over 20 years. Back in that time frame when he was describing the Remington years, these guys allowed me to be the lowest common denominator on back in the 3-gun craze. I was the lowest common denominator on a 3-gun team with these guys. And
so side note, his very first 3-gun match was the Pro-Am in Rockcastle that Rockcastle did. So it was a Pro-Am Rockcastle. So we're obviously competing on the AM side because it was new to us. We were getting into it. And
we were following the AMU guys.
His very, very first match, at the end, it's a random draw for everything. He wins a brand new custom 2011 pistol.
Nice.
Yeah, very first match.
Oh, yeah.
Go big or
Can't
go
beat
home.
that.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So, I managed roughly. I had about 30 community newspapers, semi-frequency newspapers, several dailies, 5 commercial printing plants in Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, as part of Landmark Media Dominion Enterprises. We didn't at that time. We didn't brand our company. Products that and entities that people would be more familiar with. The company started the Weather Channel. I worked roughly about 32 years, very similar in my background to what these guys are describing in the acquisition with Freedom Arms Group back at that time. Landmark Dominion decided to put the community news and the daily metropolitan news group for sale. And roughly 2000, I would say 19, 20, our companies were acquired by a Kentucky-owned private media enterprise. And I was retained, and part of my goal at that time, part of my assignment was consolidating printing plants from 5 to roughly 2. Completed that, backed out of it, retired early, and Marlon and I, 2 other owners, and another engineer tech here. When Marlon and the team was going through the initial acquisition, and he and I were talking about all of their goals and their aspirations on starting ADG, timing wasn't necessarily right. But when these guys learned that I had retired, then we started quickly talking about this opportunity. When you think about just producing widgets, so I was in an industry where I started every day with no inventory, no news, no photography, no advertising content, producing a newspaper, either tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of newspapers, getting it to and in deliverable by 2 a.m. the next morning, and then starting all over again with no inventory, no news, no advertising, no photography, hundreds of employees, hundreds of contractors. So the skill set that I brought to the team, not being an engineer, was production timing management, figuring out how to constrict things, identifying, you mentioned yesterday in our tour that whole conservation of motion and how we can reduce time to get output increased. And when I came on board, I worked for 2 months, 2.5 months, kind of as undercover boss, I guess you could say.
So that whole story, when we brought Chris in, we actually brought him in, and the line workers, he came in as a line worker. And so we brought him in for 2 months and let him work and go through the current in place training process. And so all the guys knew him as a line worker. So they're telling him all kinds of stuff, whatever line people talk about. Right. And then we just show up one day
I'm listening and making mental notes.
By the way,
opportunity here, opportunity there, opportunity here.
It's like,
and 2 months later, you're like, oh yeah, this is our new GM for the case line. He's now your boss's boss.
There's nobody out there going, Marlon's an asshole.
They may not have until now. I had it hidden.
Enhance your shooting experience with STOCKY'S stocks. Are you tired of struggling with mediocre rifle stocks that hinder your performance? Imagine having a high-quality rifle stock that not only enhances your accuracy, but also provides superior strength and a lightweight build. STOCKY'S Stocks offers a wide range of premium rifle stocks manufactured with hand layup carbon fiber construction, a patented carbon fiber AccuBlock, and multiple finish options. Whether you're a long-range shooter or a hunting enthusiast, our stocks are perfect for you. Experience unmatched precision and durability with STOCKY'S stocks. We provide stock installation instructions, technical support, and guidance to help you choose the right stock for your rifle. Upgrade your shooting game today with STOCKY'S stocks.
Well, that was, that was incredibly important for a number of reasons. One, I had to learn the process, and, I am incredibly blessed to learn this process, having been, my background, I hunted, shot competitively, hand loaded, but most of it was either handgun ammunition or .223 for the whole 3-gun issue. But coming into this environment and being able to learn from rock stars in this industry, I couldn't have written a second career path any better than the experience that I've had. And it was equally important for me to be able to work with Greg, work with Michael, the rest of the team, to implement some of the changes in training, production improvement, process improvement, having had the opportunity of doing it firsthand, mopping the floors, doing the preventative maintenance at the end of the night. So when someone said, "Oh, well, no, we can't do it that way," well, I did it this way for 2 months. Let's try something different and see what the result's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, that process, I don't bring technical expertise. I don't bring metallurgical expertise, but just from a production standpoint, that has been part of what has enabled us through the course of the last year and a half, 2 years, of expanding the production, cutting that backlog that Marlon mentioned earlier, being able to increase production by about 30% through that second shift addition. And now recognizing, and the next goal is, okay, now what do we do just in terms of being able to increase output on a machine? We can't add another shift easily right now. We're not at a process where we can add, moving from 18 to 24 hours, because then all we're doing is running our equipment to failure. That's not a long-term business strategy, right? So all of that has enabled us to, while we still have the problems of missing a targeted deliverable, as you mentioned, when it might be a month, we've made some significant improvements through the process of just being able to improve training, zoning changes that we've made. The recruiting changes that we've made that way has played an important role in that, and the goal is to continue to have that improvement.
No, good deal.
You sure you're not a teacher?
Yeah, no, and that's the other thing he brings, because the engineers here don't speak. He can speak to you like a kindergarten teacher explaining.
That's what I mean.
So you ended off with 6.8 Western in late March.
6.8 Western's going to come in late February.
Late February.
Yeah. Then we're going to move to an OEM, and then
we're in late March.
As we get into late March, we'll have 6UM. That'll be your 2 days of production there, and then we're moving into our rum families.
Okay.
Those particular calibers will carry us roughly through mid to late May. We'll move to our Psalm families at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Then we will be, that's going to carry us roughly to the August time frame.
How come you're not going to run Psalm with UM at the same time? 6UM, wouldn't that make sense?
We're actually doing the UM to get it to you earlier.
They're doing us a solid right.
So you did change the schedule.
He's not. Greg is not happy. You're not. Greg is not happy about this.
We thank you. We thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Greg, what do you need? What do you need, Greg? We're here for you.
Awesome.
Almost.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
We appreciate it. Okay. Sorry.
Then we'll be circling back around roughly early August time frame. We'll move back into our PRC families.
Basically like a repeat of the first half, except for you're probably going to be adding some of those new cartridges in second half of the year.
And then we'll be doing EX runs throughout the year as time permits on the new cartridges we're announcing.
Yep.
So those EX cartridges, 338 Win Mag, 7 STW, 375 H&H, 416 Rem Mag. Again, the Creedmoors, also our 6.5, 22 Creed, 6 Creed. We'll be looking at all those. The one of the big things is like on our 308. When we did the 308 base and the Creedmoor base shells initially, when we did them several years ago, we used the set point process and we made that work. In our mind, it was not exactly optimal for those cartridges. And so we're pretty much redesigning the whole tooling pack. So it'll be ADG optimized essentially on those size shells.
Okay.
Can you guys kind of go into real quick? Yeah, because it's going to come to him, this question. Well, as soon as I said, ADG is going to make 6UM brass, I had like lots of people on Rockslide. Well, you're fucking up the process from other brass. You're just taking that space, that time away from making 6.5 PRC. Can you kind of go through? Is that true? Is that not?
Well,
true?
it is true. I mean, as Chris just discussed, there's so many hours in a production year and so many products that we're making. If I double the amount of product A that I'm going to make, then that means half of product B that I can make.
Although Greg has been making brass since Jesus, he hasn't been able to create that ninth day.
I haven't been able to create time.
At the same time, I think we're at a point in if you look at the entire network and how full it is of the different manufacturers of brass. I mean, this is not fucking COVID times right now. If you take any cartridge that you guys make, almost any cartridge you make, I know I have a lot of brass in inventory from different manufacturers, but I have a lot of ADG brass. When you're walking out and you look over at our shipping area, I mean, there's aisle after aisle, and there's you see ADG boxes everywhere. But so taking away time from production for a new cartridge is not really a big deal at this point because most brass are available. At this time, there's nothing people are really after right now, other than the new stuff that you don't make yet.
Right. I just see Greg in here on a Saturday night, his shirt off, his hair flowing in the breeze. He's running from fucking machine to machine, just cranking out 6 UM brass.
It probably wouldn't be Saturday night. It'd probably be Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. Gotcha.
He goes to bed at 8.
That's right.
Like real men do.
That's
right.
debatable.
That's right.
Very debatable.
Nothing good happens after 8 p.m.
After 11 p.m.
Nothing legal.
Great things happen after 11 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, guys, we try to keep Marlon and team does a good job about giving Unknown Munitions a kind of a quarterly production schedule, and we like to put that in the product description. So if you guys are ever curious about what they're running, we tend to keep the most updated information there. They've also been doing a really good job of social media. I'm sure part of the strategy there will be maybe to have some videos and pictures as you guys run a new cartridge down the line to let people know that things are coming. I know that our consumers love that type of information. You guys have been doing a good job with that.
We've been more interactive, I guess, on Instagram. So we've started making regular posts on Instagram if somebody wants to follow us and kind of thing. We're trying to hit 2 posts a week at least, and then maybe a reel on once a week kind of thing. So that's what our goal is to get to. So a lot of it's going to be what's rolling out right now. We'll do some how-tos. We'll do a bunch of different things. I think Chris has put together a video for like what we were doing for whitetail season.
Nice.
Which is big in Kentucky here. So
I saw this. So I was sitting down last night. We got back to the house there, and I had an email from Macmillan, and I thought it was very interesting. It was unlike anything I had seen before, and basically, the email was saying that it was giving the email receiver the opportunity to basically vote on the next stock that they were going to make. So it looked like they had taken some input from customers, and they had 2 stocks on this page. And you go to their website, and I think it's under support or something like that. But you go to this page, and it had 2 pictures of 2 stocks and what they were going to make it for, basically a different inlet, right? So a Tikka inlet for one of their popular stocks that wasn't available in a Tikka inlet before. And the way you voted was you clicked the stock and you put a $100 deposit down that you want that stock, and then it needed to hit, I believe it's probably the number's 50 because we're at 47 at the time. But it made me think, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, how do you allow consumers to kind of let you know about a cartridge they may want or vote on a cartridge, or how are you guys making those decisions? And it dawned on me like a place on your website where I'm sure 6.8 Western was requested a lot of times before, or you heard it over and over again before you just decided out of the blue that, hey, we're going to make 6.8 Western. But you might have just a hodgepodge of the cartridges that you're about to make, or some ones that you guys have been thinking about, and it would enable the consumer to kind of vote in a way. Not so much put money down, but like add your email to this list that you're interested in this brass, and you can kind of gauge that interest in that cartridge. Not only that, but then you have this email list when you're done that, hey, when this cartridge is about to come out, these were the guys that signed up for it. And you can almost have, consumers before you even start to produce the brand.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. We essentially, if anybody emails into either sales or info requesting cartridge stuff, or Kevin is the one who processes a lot of our orders to dealers. He's the one that'll get, and he logs all the requests that he gets. So we go through periodically and look at, okay, what sort of bubble into the top, where are things that way? As we said last time, our primary distribution method is through our dealers, through our dealer network, and those are large and small. And that's really our big push this next, through the winter is going to be, getting more dealers on board with us. And there's no minimum requirements for us. We have different tiers depending on how much you want to order at a time, which determines your discount. But you can be a small guy that you're a custom rifle builder and you need 5 boxes of product. We can set you up as a dealer. And then to the bigger guys, you got full blown places. Now the big thing, and when we started, we did have an issue because we went through lots of, like I said earlier in this, we're going to do OEMs. We're going to have 2 or 3 customers and that's it. Mm-hmm. Right. Then we went into the retail packaging. We had to develop retail packaging, and then we went into retail. And initially when we first went into retail, we're like, okay, all we got to do is get into like Midway and Brownells and we're set. We're going to have these guys and we're going to go and push all this stuff there. And
that's the typical industry model.
Yeah. And that didn't work out for us because we had a bad experience with one of the companies, and then one of the other companies told us that our social media presence wasn't big enough and we were too small. And I'm like, you guys sell like the most odd single thing in here and you won't carry our stuff. So
these big box stores, I'm going through this kind of similar, they're very demanding.
Yeah.
And if you don't dot everything the way they want it dotted, you're not a consideration. It's tough.
So pissed at one of them that we went to SHOT Show, and when we started the retail stuff, I don't remember, it was 2018, maybe 2019. But anyway, went there and said, you know what? Screw all of them. We're going to do our own. We're just going to go direct to dealer. And so we started signing up dealers. We set up our price tiers based on what they order, and we try to give a good margin to dealer. And like even when we increase our MSRP, we try not to. So if we see a 5% increase to MSRP on our dealer margin, we don't increase their price 5%. We try to give them even a little more margin on it so that they can make good money moving this product. And that is our sales force. It becomes our dealers.
I go out of my way to not use those big fucking companies.
Yeah.
I despise Midway. I despise Brunel's. Jake has to deal with all that side of it. He doesn't let me talk to his customers because I despise them too. I'm just kidding. But
that's why we would never own just a regular gun shop on the street. You would be an employee like us.
Jake's like, just don't go talk to him. Don't talk to him. Because we'd run it right into the ground.
Yeah.
That was a stupid question. Yeah.
I just fucking told you the answer. Why aren't you listening?
That's why we limit Ryan to the podcast.
Yeah.
We can edit shit out.
Yeah, it doesn't work well.
Nice.
It gets so bad now. If Jake hears me in the showroom, he just rolls over and gets in front.
So we try to push everything to dealers. That's our biggest thing. Our website stock is secondary. And we almost we'll never offer specials off our website. We just sell it at full MSRP, whatever it is. So we hope that people will go to their local dealer and support their local economy and through their local dealers or wherever they want to buy it. And that's our distribution plan, not only for the brass, but honestly for all of our products. We plan to distribute the same way.
Yeah, and if your local dealer doesn't carry ADG products,
tell them to
ask
sign up.
them. Ask them to contact us,
or just go to Unknown Munitions and buy it there.
Yes,
we like that too. We ship worldwide.
There you go.
I got some questions.
All right, here we go.
This is from IG. Some we've touched on, but we'll touch on them again, I guess. How often should you anneal, and how long can brass last if annealed compared to not?
Well, we definitely covered that shit. Every firing and
ideally every firing, unless you can speak to this a little bit better than me, but in general, you cannot anneal your brass too many times, but you can anneal your brass too much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. If you anneal your brass too much,
if you're annealing
it's
properly,
garbage.
You can't do it too many times.
Yeah.
But while annealing, if you're not using something like an amp or something, if you have that little carbide porcelain thing in the end of your drill, and you're sitting here holding the propane torch and not using Tempelac, then you're gonna over anneal your brass and you're gonna reduce brass. So you're actually doing the opposite of what you should be.
When you see a fall.
Well, yeah, flame, or you see, brass is twinkling away, so do it with the lights off. That's one good thing for you. So you're not trying to burn that brass away, and it does happen. It definitely does happen.
Yeah. So I guess the other answer to that question is you don't necessarily have to anneal if you're loading your own. Understand that if you anneal, it's going to give you a more consistent load, more consistent exit velocity, more consistent burning, more consistent. A lot of things are more consistent. So it really comes down to what you're trying to do too. And this will be my only non-ADG thing that I would say is like it's kind of like if you got a hand loader and he's looking for brass and he wants to shoot something and reuse his brass. And if his goal is to hit a pie plate at 50 yards, right? Honestly, he's not going to get any advantage using our brass over whatever the hell he can dig out of the ground or find.
Annealed or not, it doesn't matter.
Right. But when you get into, you want to shoot long range, you don't want to miss, you want to minimize your error budget or you want to maximize your error budget, if you will, for things that you're doing, whether it be in competition or whether it be game animals of whatever it is, then the way to do that is the most consistent loadings and the most consistent performance out of the firearm you can get. And that's going to be using high quality brass. It's going to be annealing every time. And again, that comes down to, are you trying to shoot 1/4 minute groups sizes for what you're doing? Or if you're in a hunting situation, minute and a half. So minute and a half, you don't necessarily have to anneal every time. If you want half-minute performance every single time, first round out of the cold bore, probably should anneal if you're practicing with that.
If you don't have an annealer, we anneal brass for people that unknown. You can just ship them in. Or if you're local, I have an amp in the retail store that people can walk in and use for free. So we have a reloading bench, has a zero press, an auto trickler, CPS, even has a Dillon primer collator deal. I have everything that we use to load on a table that is free for customers to come in the retail store and use. It includes an amp. So you can walk in. If you're local to unknown, you can walk in, even, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 pieces or whatever. We'll put a chair there for you. You can get after it. But
he doesn't let me go over there either.
We're not gonna let you sit in it very long.
Next question. I did not ask this question, just so we know. In the future, will there be 6UM ready to load brass, no fire forming?
Well, technically there is. If you go, we should have covered that already. But so we decided to offer it in 30 degree and 40 degree. The brass will come to you as a 6mm neck with a 30-degree shoulder, so you can run it that way. We'll have reamers, dies, everything that goes along with the 30-degree shoulder. If you want the most performance, or the way that Ryan uses the case, or that everybody's been advertising, the 6UM has a 40-degree shoulder, which you'd call improved. It will also be available with all the tools, but you will need to form that 40-degree shoulder. I think that's a minimal amount of movement. We'll probably have load data published that, in other words, if you shoot a 30-degree and you're fire forming it into a 40-degree, it's probably, the load's going to probably be accurate enough that you could use that, rather than just shooting it, to fire form it.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
We'll also offer loaded ammo in both directions. We'll also offer fire forming services. So once the 6UM, all the tools are available and everything is on the website ready to go, and brass is there, which we're considering basically the end of March if you're listening. And you're able to order all that stuff ahead of time too if you want, just sales@unknownmunitions.com, but we'll have everything available at the same time, including loaded ammo. Yeah, as a product on the website.
You can order 6UM brass right now.
Yeah, or ammo. I mean, you can literally order anything you want ahead of time if you're trying to get yourself in line, or you're having a rifle built, or we're building a rifle for you. You can have any of that, secured ahead of time. Out of that 2-day run, 30,000 piece that we're talking about in March. Yes.
All right. Is the brass in the opaque orange case at Scheels any different than the transparent orange case brass?
Oh, no. No.
Was that a bad run or something?
He's talking about, that guy's talking about the lids.
Yes.
So the opaque, the bottom is opaque and the top is transparent now. And that's because the opaque gives you, is a little stronger, and we use that initially, but the clear ones, which were original boxes, were all the transparent, and they would crack terribly in the wintertime.
Maybe we need to switch
when we'd ship. So now we do the opaque on the bottom. That's what takes all the load. And we left the clear top so that you can clearly see when you're loaded, that you can see that it's loaded ammo, or you can see what it is. So we decided to leave the clear top, but it is no different. At one time, we just had a opaque top as well.
I didn't know
It's
that.
funny how they fucking customers, man. They're undefeated.
Yeah,
How they-
actually,
how they
it's
noticed that
UPS.
shit, right?
They
I
are
gotta tell you what.
undefeated.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the packaging of those cases when they come in 16.
We spend a lot of
boxes.
fucking time sending people replacement blue cases when that arrives to them and one's cracked. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell
So
Jess. We're gonna
talk
do
to
it
them
that way.
about doing an opaque bottom because they put a filler in there that makes it a lot tougher.
Definitely.
Retail shelf that has a box.
Oh yeah. So yeah, sometimes you'll get be aware that sometimes you'll see a cracked lay where it's been opened. Shields will put them on the store sometimes, and they don't know to be able to contact us to get a new sticker and reseal. But just check the product if it has been opened. Just make sure you open it and check it.
Yep.
Just like medication.
Yeah.
Again, I did not ask this question, but this is a good question again. Will there be both 6 SOM and 6 stamped brass in the future? That's a very good question that we kind of talked about. Greg kind of talked about in the car last night.
Well, they're both going to say 6 right? You're just going to have a 30 or a 40 degree shoulder.
Yeah, and the reason that we like to do that is we have put the 6 brass 30 degree shoulder in 3 different SOMs. They don't fit.
Yep, it's just a hair too long.
So this will at least say if you get the 6 with the 6 reamer, it's going to fit.
All that being said, too, 6 SOM is not a SAMI spec. 6.5 SOM is not even a SAMI spec.
Correct. No.
So when you talk about brass or reamers or dies or anything along those lines, if a gunsmith is going to build you a 6 SOM rifle, make sure that everything you get from him matches. You should always get all of that from your gunsmith. Have him bring your dies in. Have him size your brass if needed. Have everything match the chamber. Make sure you buy your rifle and you get brass and dies with it from the same place. That's when you run into problems. So our goal with everything saying 6 is whether it be the reamer, dies available from ADG, reamers available from ADG, everything around the circle. If it says 6 as long as now this is, I guess now, and hopefully people ain't copying shit and calling it our name, but basically everything is going to work together because there's only one little ecosystem that's been developed and everything fucking matches and it's all been tested. Yep.
I think this question is to your website. Need a resource tab with SAMI dimensions and ADG H2O capacity for every case you produce.
Yeah, okay. So that I'll take blame for some of that. So understand that we are not web developers, but we do put information on there. And getting the I try to put the H2O volumes, although we probably need to go back and check because I know they're not on there for all cartridges. For SAMI dimensions, and it's a public access, SAMI.org.
Yep.
You can get all the chamber and cartridge dimensions for SAMI calibers. Just go to SAMI.org.
It's a fantastic resource.
Yeah, they have a link for all the things. You just look at the PDF. You can roll down to whatever caliber you're looking at. It gives you everything you need.
I think the wizards and the nerds on the forums there that are deliberating from cartridge to cartridge, they love the H2O capacity because they can compare brass thickness or heavy dutiness or whatever you want to call it from one case to another. For example, Hornady 6.5 PRC versus ADG 6.5 PRC, which one has more capacity? And a lot of guys relate just the larger capacity to, I can run it harder. And that's really not the fucking truth. And that's why we like ADG Brass is because I can run 300 rum is, to the max of the max of the max, and nothing happens. Everything is okay. So the stronger brass, in other words, can hold more pressure even if it's a lower charge weight. You're technically running it harder with increased case pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, you can powder selection can change things.
Yeah, but the relationship between the actual H2O capacity of the cartridge, because the outer dimensions technically should remain the same. So if you have a smaller H2O capacity, it would mean that there's more brass there, and technically it should hold more pressure as a stronger cartridge case, which most people relate ADG to a stronger case than most. So I could say don't just look at case capacity like, I'm going to run Hornady Brass harder than I can ADG. It's not the truth.
Well, you guys touched on it a little bit on the tour yesterday, right? And Marlon particularly mentioned it, I believe, when we were at Head Turn, right? The trimmings that come off the head turn, we're actually cutting the rim geometry and the extractor groove. Those dimensions per SAMI on the SAMI website, typically, I think the extractor groove diameter and the rim diameter is 20 thousandths range per SAMI. Now we try to run probably 10 thousandths or less on our range. But if you had a shell that was maximum diameter and a shell that was minimum diameter that was cut with the same form tool that we have, if those shells had identical case capacity for water, they would weigh way different.
Yes.
Just because of that extractor groove
cut.
dimension.
Yep.
Purely that.
Yep.
That accounts for a lot of your, I understand the appeal to, hey, I got my scale, I'm going to weigh my brass.
Yep.
And, it's uniform if they're the same. That's great, but if they're not the same weight, the weight difference could be an extractor groove variance of dimension, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the case capacity of the water, and that's what drives your ballistics accuracy part of it.
Yep. I think a lot of guys that are weighing cases too, just if there's a range, if there's I don't know how wide of a range you want to talk about, but maybe a grain range across your 50 pack of brass. Some guys, it just allows them to sort because maybe there is one heavy outlier that's 5 grains off, but they're just kind of, it's like a peace of mind kind of check.
Shooting is very mental. I get that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anytime we're doing any new development, any major process changes, and occasionally just in-process checks, I'll grab a random 50 pieces. I will weigh every piece. I will take the heaviest 5 and the lightest 5, and I will measure the water capacity of those 5 heaviest and the 5.
Okay.
So you may end up, to your point, let's say I end up with 2 grains of variation between my maximum shell weight and my minimum shell weight.
Okay.
All right. The water capacity difference between those 2 shells is likely half or a third of what that weight difference is of the actual brass itself.
Is that typical 2 grains? You just throwing a number out there?
No, that's
typical.
Okay,
so a 2 grain range from that extractor groove cut mainly. Gotcha.
It could be a trim, all the things that affect that, the trim length of the brass, what I'm cutting the actual trim length to. Again, Sammy allows you 20 thousandths or so on that dimension. We try to control it to say 10.
Yeah.
Right. But you got 10 thousandths difference over the wall thickness and the diameter of the neck. What's that turn into from a weight point of view? It's not insignificant.
Gotcha.
I imported Bertram brass, which I agree is shitty brass, and sold it for a while. And I
got chastised for calling out actual names yesterday.
No, Bertram brass is shitty.
Yeah,
I could attest to the returns I had on the brass. But
it technically Mr. Bertram for many years.
Oh yeah, I imported, so I was the only person that sold it in America, and you're not wrong. But I did have a 10 pieces of brass 300 Ultra, and there were 8 grains difference between the heaviest and the lightest. I shot them at 800 yards. It was a 1-minute group. So it doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot. Even, and I do agree that brass,
if the weight difference is on the outside of the case,
it
doesn't matter.
It's not in the volume. Yeah. So it's.
But, I understand it's a lot easier to take a piece of brass and weigh it versus filling it full of water.
Absolutely. And people aren't lazy, but they are lazy at some things. It's really interesting. Oh, we got a lot of questions, but I'll just get a few more. Is a 6.5 Grendel brass in your future?
Never say never.
Yeah, but move through those quick.
It's not on the radar.
Not on the list right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you could vote soon on the website.
Yeah,
though.
we could put a vote on the website.
Yeah.
Any smaller caliber brass on the horizon? 223, 22 Creed, 6 Creed, etc. We talked about that.
Yeah, the Creedmoors for sure. Not
Creedmoor family towards the end of the year.
No.
Yeah, probably not 223. That we get down to. I don't
never
know
done 223.
Yeah, we never have it. When you get to that case size, I don't know how we would be able to be competitive in some realistic environment where you're really going to get for the range that cartridge is used at. There's so many options out there. It wouldn't justify paying the price that we would have to charge to make that.
Yeah.
Or taking promotions.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I appreciate if you are an ADG fanboy that you would buy it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be like when you look at the cost of what that would be. There's going to be like 3 of you.
Yeah. The smaller the cartridge, the less the margin.
Yeah, because the volume that we only have a fixed volume. So whether we're making 338 Lapua or we're making 22 Creedmoor, the rate at which the machines can produce brass is within 5%.
Yeah.
So we can't make it any faster. So I can't produce more volume when I go to smaller. And so at the end of the day, it's going to largely, except for the material cost, the processing cost is going to be the same for a 223 as it's going to be for a 338 Lapua.
But Creedmoor family at the end of the year. End of
That's
2025.
what we're looking at.
Okay. Hit them.
Fantastic. I'll just the last one. This is a generic question, but it's super subjective, but it gets asked a lot. So I'm going to ask it. How many firings does their brass last with typical loads?
So safe pressure load.
Yeah.
So I would say that, what we test to internally is, and we touched on this, but we have a 10 load minimum, and we do no prep and no cleaning.
Yep.
So unless you have to clean, depending on what the powder is.
No annealing either.
And no annealing,
Yep.
no prep. We just
Which is a
shoot
big
it,
point, because
size
if you're
it.
annealing, I mean, the most failure prone reason for a piece of brass you can't load it
Split
anymore
neck.
is a split neck, right? So if you're annealing, that would definitely extend that 10.
Yeah.
Mine is always primer.
And that's that's within SAMI specific. So we're trying to load to about SAMI maximum levels
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
But brass life is one of those things. It could be 1 round, or it
Yeah.
could be. I've
Very
had
subjective.
I've had reports of people doing 20 plus.
Yep.
It all depends
The thing I
on what
loved
that
about
load
your
is.
brass is I went from about 5 fire-ins in 300 Ultra to 8 to 10 fire-ins in 300 Ultra without losing the pocket.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Jake gets 1 fire-in with your brass, but he's also running, 100,000 PSI.
Yeah.
Well, I make the point that if that bullet kills an animal, that it did its job. I don't need to reload that piece of brass.
That's right.
We are going to take note of all the questions that you guys asked through Instagram, though, and we're going to do a powered by ADG question on the podcast every trip here.
Yep. We'll answer some. They'll answer some, and we'll have that.
Maybe they can even
weekly.
speak pipe in with some ADG questions that we'll get on the
Yeah.
show.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So either way, ask your questions, podcast at shoottohunt.com, or speak
Yes.
pipe it in.
And there is no stupid questions. There's only stupid fucking people.
Yeah, then make sure if you guys are going to speak pipe in, you don't have to leave your name or your phone number, but just make sure that you leave us all the information we need to at least answer your question accurately. Or if we need to field the question with ADG, make sure you include even a lot number if there was an issue, or make sure you're telling us your cartridge, your load, your bullet, all that kind of good shit, so that we can get your questions answered properly in one shot. And we are going to record some questions, I think, later today.
Yeah.
So we'll maybe have the next 2 months or so of questions off of frequently asked questions that ADG receives, but be sure and send those in to us.
I frankly think we should do a monthly Ask Greg.
That would be great.
And
Greg
Jesus.
would love
Yes,
that.
all of our brass is annealed every month.
obviously, that's great. Just, most frequently asked question. Hey, it's going to be this. It's going to be, hey, the question of the week powered by annealed ADG Brass.
Yes.
Every time.
Annealed.
Yes. Nice.
I think we covered a lot.
Finish us off, Ryan. Words of wisdom.
Oh, I don't have any. If you notice in this podcast, A, I was half asleep because it's early, and B, I let it flow because there's a lot of information and I didn't want to just fuck it up. I like my ammo loaded in 50 round cases and easy to shoot.
In the orange box.
That's on the orange box. I don't give how you guys do it is good enough for me. Like I said, I went through 8 to 10 firings of 300 Ultra. So I loved Greg before Greg even knew I fucking loved him.
Mhm. Nice.
That's all I got.
Anything you guys want to finish off with? How to get a hold of you guys, or
Any questions? Obviously, sales or info at atlasdg.com. You can call the number, but it kind of puts you into this crazy voicemail circle that you may not actually get to a human. But you will, if you leave a message, we will call you back. We'll get that message and call you back. Oh, yeah. And if your local retailer doesn't have us on the shelf that you like to go, if you have a gun shop or a gunsmith that you use, have them contact us and we'll get them set up to be able to carry our products.
there you go. And do you prefer email or phone calls?
Email probably is
Yep.
probably the best way.
All right.
And like you said, explain kind of what you're asking as best you can.
Yeah,
on
like
there.
be a respectful question asker is
Yeah.
what it is, right? Like like when I reply to emails, I always try to include like any questions that I need to ask, like all in one shot. Just make it a one hitter quitter. And so if you have an issue with brass, or you have a question about load data, just include everything, anything information that can pertain to it, coals, your loading process, whatever you think might pertain to answering the question properly.
Right.
Don't be an asshole.
There you go. Don't be an asshole.
The one other question that was texted to me is, you're producing 7 PRC right now. What's the lag time before it's on the shelf to sell?
It's actually rolling out the door as we speak. There's dealers. We have a pick list that you guys saw, so that stuff is shipping. I think the 7 PRC shipped to unknown a day or two ago.
It was 5 days, and then maybe a few days for QC and packaging.
Mhm.
So let's call it 8 days from the time they hit the first one to the time the first ones are running out the door.
Yeah, so it's actually the 7PRC is currently shipping out to dealers. We ship it as we don't wait. So as they come out, as the brass gets packed into retail, there's a pick list, and we just go down that order, and that pick list is largely in the order that people place the orders that our dealers have placed the orders. That's how we fill them. So we don't necessarily give priority to a store that ordered 27 cases, and this guy ordered 2 boxes. If the guy with 2 boxes ordered before the 27 case guy, then the guy with 2 boxes gets his first.
As this podcast is there, that production run will already have been shipped out.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I got.
Well, thanks for listening. So hopefully you guys listened the 2 weeks in a row. And next podcast, we'll have some ADG questions coming up.
Thank you.
Listening.